Rabbi Taub. How are you doing?
Baruch Hashem. You know, I have a daughter named Chaya.
I did not know that.
Yes.
I didn't know you have a daughter-in-law named Malki.
I have a daughter-in-law named Malki. We just mentioned her. That is true. Malka Bela.
Yeah.
Our dear Malka Bela.
Mazel tov for your granddaughter, grandson.
Grandson.
What is it?
Chaim Yosef, grandson, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem.
Okay, Mazel tov. That's so exciting.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. So what's up, Chaya?
What's up is that I am dating, and I have some questions about marriage. Specifically, questions about a woman's role in marriage.
Yes.
It just, like, from what I've learned, everything seems like very passive. A woman is makabel. She's the receiver.
Okay, so let's explain that for our crowd, because they may not know all of this inside baseball that you're referring to, this makabel stuff. Okay, and by the way, I highly recommend
you give the context.
Well, I will recommend to people, if they want the real deep dive, they should study the Maimer L'Chodoidi from the Rebbe, and if they would like a class in the Maimer L'Chodoidi, come take a look either at SoulWords.org or at my YouTube channel or Spotify or wherever you like to enjoy Shais Taub content. And there's some, look up the L'Chodoidi Maimer. But very, very, very briefly, there's a concept of the feminine and masculine spiritual energies, which is mashpia and makabel, which I'll translate as provider and recipient. And let's talk about that. At any rate, I cut you off, but I just wanted to fill everyone else in with like those terminologies. But please continue.
No, and also thanks for your suggestion about studying that mimer. I didn't know that one.
Okay, maybe if you learn
things on like feminine, masculine, but not that.
Okay, if you learn that mimer, then maybe all your questions will be answered. But then we wouldn't have this amazing call. So I'm glad that you didn't learn the mimer yet. Okay, but
there we go.
okay, but right. Continue, please.
Okay, so we were saying that the woman is the receiver.
Yes.
And that's like really, that's where all the basis of everything that I think I know from Hasidus, like that's always the drawing point, that's where it's rooted.
Yeah.
And then even just like within other halachic sources, I can't think of much where it's like an active role that the woman plays.
Yeah. So you're not getting very excited about this idea of becoming somebody's receiver.
No, well, no. I don't mind it. I'm fully on board. But I've been dating someone, and he's been taking it very seriously, and he scoped out and really wrote out exactly what he views marriage is and why he wants it and what his like obligations are in the marriage and like what he would bring to the marriage.
Okay.
And I've been trying to complete my own, and I've been getting very, very stuck because I'm like, what am I going to say? I say I'm going to trust, I'm going to receive. Like, what am I actually bringing here?
That's very deep. In other words, it's like if you're the provider, you can make a whole list of stuff that you're going to provide. If you're the recipient, it's like, well, whatever gets provided. I don't know. I guess I'll find out. That's kind of what you say. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Can we talk about this? Like really talk about it? Like go deep into it?
That's really.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so masculine and feminine.
Thanks for seeing the depth in that, bringing it out.
What do you say?
Thanks for seeing the depth in it and like bringing it out. Like
it's very deep. It's a very deep question.
What I'm really asking.
Yeah. It's a very deep question. So masculine and feminine, mashpia, makabel, provider, recipient. Okay. It's a very easy concept to get wrong and to misunderstand. So I want to go over it slowly and carefully so we don't make any mistakes. Okay. Classic example of masculine and feminine energies in the spiritual realm, before we even get to male and female, are the 6 workdays and Shabbos. The 6 workdays are masculine. Shabbos, often called the Shabbos queen, is feminine. what is masculine about the 6 work days and what is feminine about Shabbos? Well, the 6 work days are all about doing. They're all about activity. And in a certain way, it's about conquering, because you're going out into the world and fixing what's broken and righting what's wrong. Shabbos, you don't fix anything. You have a foretaste of the Mashiach era, where everything is as it should be, and instead of doing, you are now engaged in being, which is, by the way, why Shabbos can drive some people crazy, because when you can't distract yourself with doing and you just have to be, it can become like sensory deprivation, like those people who sit in those sensory deprivation tanks. I'm joking about it, but it's actually pretty serious. Like, you're a single person, you're dating, that means you're single. And for a lot of singles, like, Shabbos is actually really, really, really a hard time, because you don't have anything to do. The whole point of Shabbos is just to be, and it becomes like this very lonely time. And yeah, that's a whole other discussion. But so you have the 6 work days as doing, Shabbos as being. And then what's the relationship between them? Like, how do they interact with each other? Well, pretty simple. We're told that one who toils on Erev Shabbos will have what to eat on Shabbos, which means basically, if you want to, let's say you want to eat a potato kugel, Shabbos fare, potato kugel, classic, traditional, at least for Ashkenazim, potato kugel, that's a pretty standard Shabbos dish. So let's say you want a potato kugel on Shabbos. Well, you're going to have to go out, make money, earn money, spend the money at the store, buy the potatoes, bring them home, chop them up, grate them, peel them, not in that order, by the way, mix them with all the ingredients, and bake them. You're going to have to do all of that on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But if it's Shabbos already and you say, oh, I want a potato kugel, sorry, too late. Too late. In other words, doing is over. There's no more doing. And whatever you got, you got. So Shabbos receives, in that sense, she's a recipient. She receives from the 6 work days, because she can't make her own potato kugel. The 6 work days are the days for making potato kugel. They make the potato kugel. They give it to her. She receives it. Okay. Now, when you tell the narrative like that, Shabbos actually sounds kind of pathetic, because she can't even make a potato kugel. She can't make anything. And she's completely dependent on all the other days of the week to provide her with anything that she's going to have. And that's kind of where you started from, like with that comment about, it seems kind of passive, right? I'm asking, like, okay. It feels kind of passive.
Yeah, but I wasn't coming at it from a... like, there was no hesitancy with that. I see how it can be an active thing, but, like, I'm seeking something even more. Like, I feel like I'm still not bringing enough to the table.
Okay.
But let's continue with
okay. All right.
Where we're up to with this. Yeah.
So you don't particularly have any resistance to this passive concept, but it's creating a problem, because you kind of feel the need to have as robust of a list of what marriage means to you as your perhaps future husband or the guy you're dating. And because of the nature of receptivity, you don't even know what that list would entail. So what I'm saying to you is, you might not have this problem. You don't have this problem, but a lot of people do have this problem. And now you also have this problem, because this list is forcing you to have the problem. And the problem is, what's up with passivity? What's up with, like, I'm just sitting here waiting for something. It's like, but what do I do until I get something? And what's my role? What's my activity? How is it defined, other than being a response to something else coming from outside of me? So let's finish the rest of the story about the 6 days in Shabbos and tell the untold other half of that story. Because if you only tell that half that we told, it sounds like Shabbos is pretty pathetic, actually. Completely dependent, completely passive, can't do anything for herself. Okay. So the other half of that story is that, yes, only the 6 days of the week are appropriate for making kugel or cholent or anything else that you want to make. And Shabbos doesn't make any of that stuff. That's true. However, the rest of the story, the other half of the story, is what Shabbos does with the kugel when she gets it. You eat a kugel on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you're just consuming calories. It's just a kugel. On Shabbos, it becomes something completely different. Shabbos is a day where everything is sanctified. Everything is elevated. It's not about the kugel anymore. It's about having a day of the week where you get back in touch with your essence. Like I was saying before, 6 days a week we do. On Shabbos, we just be. What does it mean to just be? It means to be who you truly are, to get back in alignment with your truest self and regain purpose, identity, meaning. That's all the domain of Shabbos. Shabbos gives us a reason to go back out into the 6 days that follow her, that come after her, and do it all over again. So, in that sense, Shabbos gives, the 6 work days give Shabbos a kugel, and Shabbos turns around, takes that kugel, and gives back meaning, purpose, a reason for going out into the world for another 6 days, which, if you have to compare the two, what the 6 work days are giving to Shabbos and what Shabbos is giving to the ensuing 6 work days, one is pretty quantifiable and physical and limited. The other one is spiritual and unlimited and unquantifiable. Now, if you understand that dynamic, that the recipient, that Shabbos as a recipient is emblematic of all femininity, and that when we say femininity is a recipient, what it really means is it takes what it received and upgrades it. Now you can go and you can plug that into a lot of other masculine, feminine paradigms. And I want to give examples that are not male-female. Why? Because especially in 2025, there's a lot of resistance to gender roles. And before we even talk about it as a male-female thing, let's talk about it. Masculine and feminine don't have to be male-female proper. For instance, I'll give you another example. A teacher-student is masculine and feminine. The teacher's the provider. The student is the recipient by definition, because if the teacher didn't have something to teach, then the teacher's not a teacher. And if the student didn't have what to learn, meaning some lack of knowledge, then the student's not a student. So teacher-student is masculine, feminine, giver, recipient. But that's only half of the story. Only half of the story is when you say, well, the teacher's so smart and the student obviously isn't smart because they're the one who has to take the class. But hold on, what's the rest of the story? The rest of the story is our sages tell us, I have learned much from my teachers, even more from my colleagues, but from my students most of all. Mitalmidai yoser mikulam. What does it mean I've learned from my students most of all? What it means is that what a teacher gains from a good student is more than what you can even gain from a teacher. That a real recipient draws out things from the provider that the provider did not have access to. And anyone who's ever given a class knows this, by the way. Good students, inquisitive students, students who challenge, students who push, will draw wisdom out of you did not even know you had. So in that case, who's the real provider? It ends up being like, well, there's the provider, the recipient, but then the recipient ends up becoming also a provider, and not only also a provider, but in a certain way, a greater provider. A greater provider. Because what she, and I'll use the feminine pronoun here, the recipient gives back to the provider is actually an upgrade over what she initially received. I'll give you another paradigm that's not gender-based. That's a donor, like a philanthropist. It doesn't have to be like a rich guy, but I'm saying a giver, someone who gives charity, and the recipient. So our sages tell us clearly, more than I'll use the Talmudic terms, balabas does for the ani does for the balabas. More than the giver does for the recipient does for the giver. Meaning the giver gives the recipient some money. And whether it's $1 or $1 million, it's quantifiable. But what the recipient did for the giver and allowing the giver to do a mitzvah, to perform one of God's commandments, you can't put a price on that. That's infinitely valuable. So, again, the recipient gives back an upgraded, or I should say, incomparably upgraded version. I'll give you another example that's also not gender-based, and that is the seed planted in the ground. The seed is masculine, the ground is feminine. When you put the seed in the ground, what happens? They say that anyone can count the seeds in an apple, but only God can count the apples in a seed. Because there are really infinite apples in every seed, at least if it's an apple seed. There's no apples in a orange seed, probably not. But there are infinite apples in every apple seed, because the ability to reproduce generation after generation after generation is, at least it's in principle, it's unlimited. But that will only be revealed when the ground receives the seed. So if you look at just half of the story, you say the ground is so pathetic, it can't even grow stuff without the seed. Yeah, but what happens when the seed is introduced to the ground? The ground takes that one seed and turns it into unlimited generations of fruits that have more seeds. So again, it's giver, recipient, but recipient that turns around and becomes an even bigger recipient. You following this so far?
Yeah.
Okay. This makes sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, makes sense. All right.
Thank you.
All right. So now let's go back to your question. Your question is, if I'm the recipient, the very nature of my role is going to be defined to a great extent by whatever it is the provider chooses to provide. So how can I come up with a list when basically I'm waiting to find out? You know, like I'll give you another example. Now it is gender based, and I already feel the pushback. I can already sense the people tightening up, but I'll give you, and they're going to get so mad. Well, not everybody conforms to traditional gender roles. I know that. I'm speaking in paradigms.
Not your members. Your members aren't thinking like that.
Oh, yes, they are. Yeah, of course. If they have YouTube, YouTube, yeah, everybody's influenced, of course. If they have YouTube, they're already influenced. So, our sages tell us that a man comes home with grain, but you cannot eat grain. You cannot eat flour. It is the woman who turns it into bread, and from that we gain nourishment. Now, again, there you have masculine and feminine, giver, recipient, where the recipient creates an upgrade in what she was provided. Okay, because think about it like this. If the woman is sitting around waiting for the man to bring home the grain, he doesn't bring home the grain, so she's got nothing to bake with, so there's no bread. So that half of the story, again, she's passive, she's just sitting and waiting. But then you tell the rest of the story, yeah, but what he brought home, you can't chew wheat, you can't chew flour. It doesn't, actually, it's interesting. It says in Likutei Torah of the Alter Rebbe that a person could actually starve to death eating flour. I've never tried it, and I never Googled it to see if anyone had ever done such an experiment. It would probably be unethical. It would certainly be unethical, but apparently the body cannot gain nourishment from just flour, which is wild if you think about it. Yeah, the Alter Rebbe says it's the water and the fire, which have no nutritional value. It's interesting. Water has no nutritional value. Fire has no nutritional value, but you take the flour, you mix it with the water, you bake it with the fire, and then the body can absorb the calories and the nutrients in the flour. So, again, she's waiting. He doesn't bring home any flour. There's nothing to bake. But even after he brings it home, no one's living off of this flour. She turns it into the form that can actually be useful. So if we're to understand the feminine role in these terms, what more can we say about it to describe this role other than I'll sit around and find out what kind of flour he brings home? You understand what I'm saying? Like, what is your function other than just saying, I'll see what happens. If we are to describe that function within the parameters that we've given. Anything coming up for you?
I've heard you previously put it as transforming.
Okay, can you talk more about that?
Nurturing is also connected. Well, transforming would be meaning taking that grain and transforming it into bread and giving back this grain that had all this potential in it, but with the potential being utilized and accessed.
So talk more about that, like describe what that would look like. And if you can start to connect to it personally and envision yourself as the person doing it, that would be even cooler. What would it look like?
What does that look like? You see, on an academic level, I got it.
Okay, let's try to personalize it.
Not on a personal level. I can't connect the dots.
But let's talk it through.
Okay. I feel like I'm taking up this whole call, though.
This is your call. You're the caller.
Okay. You want to know me?
By the way, what we're doing right now is feminine. I know that you know Chassidus. You mentioned the word Chassidus, but not everybody knows all this lingo. But let's teach them a little bit. You know about Chochmah and Bina? So Chochmah and Bina are both intellectual faculties. I'm not even going to use the English wisdom and understanding because it's not really very accurate, but that's the way they usually translate it. It's not really helpful. But Chochmah and Bina are both intellectual faculties. They're two different intellectual faculties. And you know that one is masculine and one is feminine. In fact, one is called the father and one is called the mother.
I have heard that, but I didn't, it just didn't click.
Which one is which?
Now it clicks.
Which one is which?
I said the Chochmah is the father. Yeah,
Chochmah is the father and Bina is the mother. How is Chochmah a father and Bina as a mother? Chochmah is the initial, kernel of an idea, where it's really abstract, where you don't really know where it's going to go, but you kind of have that first inkling of inspiration. But it's very, very abstract, very theoretical. And then Bina is elaborative thought. Bina gives dimension, width to the little. You talk about Chochmah as being a little kernel or a little dot. You can literally think about it as a dot in the mathematical sense. And that if Chochmah is a dot, a point, rather, that's the proper term. If Chochmah is a point, then Bina is a plane. It gives dimensionality. And when we elaborate on an idea, we flesh it out. Like literally when the little dot, the little package of DNA goes into the womb and is developed in the womb and becomes a full-fledged baby with limbs and, a personality and a smile. And all of that happens within the feminine sector. So too with Chochmah and Bina. Chochmah is the abstract flash of an idea. Bina is where it gets taken apart, put back together, analyzed, and becomes something functional and multifaceted, complex. So what we're doing right now is actually, we're in the sector of Bina right now, because we're taking one idea and we're looking at it from multiple levels, multiple planes, until we get it, until it makes sense. Not just on an academic level, like you said before. I get it on an academic level, but in a very practical way. So let's do some Bina over here. What does it look like to be the one who receives, upgrades, and gives back?
Can you give an example of the giving aspect, and then I roll with that?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you an example. I would do the same for ChatGPT, so I'll do it for you, and I'm sure you'll do even better than ChatGPT. Okay. A man has an abstract idea. He says, let's take the kids out. But that's about as developed as it is. And the wife says, okay, well, let's think, let's figure out something that's age appropriate for all the kids. Let's think about something that is we can afford. Let's think about something that is accessible as far as where it's located. Let's think about something that they'll actually like. Make sure to pack the sandwiches because we don't know if you're going to have kosher food over there. And here's how many changes of clothing we're going to have to bring for the 6-hour trip because this one kid is going to mess up his clothes, and then we're going to have to bring some diapers for the little one, and then all right, we'll pack the car, and then it actually happens. So
sounds like you've done this before.
Yeah. So
that's bringing an example. That's bringing it to life. Yeah,
she brings it to life. She makes it really happen. She really makes it happen. So that would be an example. Now, can you try to picture yourself in this role and talk about what you might do and how you might add your special touch, your special flair?
Well, I guess I could just summarize what you said.
Okay. We can start with that.
Like of what she's doing there. She's like fleshing out what his idea was and making it more practical and making it like not just practical in a practical also in the sense of like filling everyone's needs in the situation.
Right. And
so maybe that could be my touch, like
to fulfill everybody's needs. I just want to back up though, something you're glossing over. To fulfill everybody's needs in the situation, you're skipping something. Maybe you intuitively know what it is, but I want to say it explicitly. To fulfill everybody's needs in the situation requires having knowledge of those needs.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say something sexist, but sometimes men don't really understand what everyone in the household actually needs. They understand it in a general way, and I say that's okay. People are going to be so triggered by this because it sounds so sexist. But for a man to say, even if a wife is working and making money, even if she's making more money than him, but for him to say, listen, my role is to pay for this stuff. I don't exactly understand every purchase that needs to be made. That's not my specialization. I'm chokhmah, not bina. But, I'll make sure that the family is supported, that we can pay the bills. But the reality is the purchasing agent is my wife. She's the one who knows what everybody needs and when they need it, where they need it, and, what comes from Amazon Prime and what we have to go to the store for and what you get from Costco. And you understand the difference? Like, there's the theory and there's the practice. And a wife has to not only implement the practice, but she has to be a genius in knowing what the different needs are. Okay, so I interrupted you, but try to describe this as a real life. Hopefully, your real life. Tell me about. Tell me what it looks like. Can you envision yourself 10 years from now? Let's say you marry this guy this year. Like 10 years from now, what does life look like? Tell me about a day. Tell me about a moment.
I think I can't access that right now just because we're on a live public call and it just feels like too I'm not.
You'll expose too much information.
Aligned enough in order to do that.
Could you say something super general that could apply to almost anyone?
We can do that.
Okay.
We can definitely do that.
Okay.
Okay. So there's a mom. I'm assuming.
And that's you.
We're putting that aside.
Really? You can't go there yet? Okay. All right. I respect that. All right. There's this mom. There's this theoretical, abstract, faceless mom. Faceless, nameless mom.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And she's not taking her kids to the park because that would be stealing your example. And I can't think of my own. If you give me the guy's idea, I can roll off with that. But I can't think of my own.
What does she do to make sure that Shabbos is coming? We're setting the clocks ahead this Saturday night, which, by the way, is true. We are setting the clocks ahead this Saturday night. And that means tonight or this week, tomorrow night, Shabbos will be, candlelighting time will be something like, I don't know, 5:45. Don't quote me on that, but something like that. And then next week, all of a sudden, it's going to be at like 6:45. And we're making Kiddush all of a sudden at 8 o'clock. So tell me what this theoretical mother does when she knows that all of a sudden Kiddush is going to be at 8 o'clock when it used to be at 7 o'clock. She's got little kids. What kind of precautions does she take? What awareness does she need to have? What changes does she have to make?
Make sure the kids have a nap before, or maybe they have an extra snack before candle lighting to keep them going a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, not to be sexist, but the husband is not really the one who's going to make sure that happens. Really, he's not going to be. It's like. So what I'm saying is, we started before saying that the female role seems kind of passive, but what I'm saying is, it's not really passive because she's the one who's really stepping up and getting stuff done in so many ways.
I'm also my question is more in the sense of a marriage before kids, because I know that a lot of a woman's role revolves around that.
So I took the easy way out and I described child rearing scenarios because that's when it becomes really easy to describe. And now you're pushing me, and I'm gonna try to rise to the occasion. Okay, but what about before kids or even after kids? But you do have a relationship with your husband that exists outside of just being parents, right? You still have, hopefully, a relationship as a husband and wife, even after you start raising kids. So what does that look like in emotional terms? What does that look like? Can you try to plug this into the Mishpia Makabel paradigm as we have defined it and describe an emotional connection or an interaction between a healthy husband and wife?
So, and giving the framework for this idea that the husband comes up with an idea and the woman fleshes it out, scripts it out, and makes it, like, transforms it and upgrades it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to always be an idea, because an idea is intellectual. Sometimes it's emotional. It's not intellectual, it's emotional. In other words, it can be emotional energy. That's very important. I always tell men, you are the provider, and provider doesn't just mean financially. It means probably primarily emotionally. And I always tell men, like, when you come home, you have to bring the emotional energy. And you have to give your wife that gift. You have to give her the emotional energy. She'll take that and amplify it, multiply it, upgrade it, but you got to be the initiator. But that's what I tell men. Don't worry about that. That's none of your business. Forget that you heard that. Okay, but think about it emotionally. What a healthy emotional reaction or interaction looks like between a husband and a wife who are aligned with that masculine-feminine paradigm. Let's say he comes home and he gives you a little bit of attention, a little bit of emotional, he makes that overture, he makes that bid for a connection. So it's the art of femininity to be able to receive it. And I want to stop for a second and just make a disclaimer. No, women do not have to receive any emotional energy that their husband offers. If it doesn't feel safe, then you should not receive it. Because if you receive something that's not emotionally safe, if it's disrespectful, and then you feel violated. So first of all, I don't want you to feel violated. But second of all, it doesn't even help the relationship, because all that'll happen is when a woman feels violated, she feels like she's being encroached upon emotionally instead of she feels that she's being given to emotionally, then a wall goes up, and she can't even prevent it from going up. It'll go up, and that's when a relationship dies, because out of a God-given defense mechanism, a woman will start to protect herself emotionally, and she'll eventually check out emotionally, and then It's very hard to come back from. So, no, women don't have to receive any emotional energy that their husband is offering, only when it's healthy. But let's say he does offer some emotional energy, some attention, some excitement, something that he wants to connect with you over. So the art of femininity is to take that, absorb it meaning to really feel it, to feel what he's putting out there, and then to amplify it and return it back to him. There's, there's something really uncanny about, like, it's a weird thing, but like for a lot of men, an experience isn't fully an experience until you've told your wife about it and she's shared in your joy. And by the way, for a lot of men, that is a great source of pain. That if they're not able to do that, for whatever reason, and they can't get that response, then it's that's when the husband feels very, very lonely, and then the wife ends up feeling very lonely as well. Then they're both lonely, and especially another sexist comment, but women tend to have friends, and when they have friends, they actually tell them about their life. Men, even if we do have friends, we don't tell them about our life. What do you tell men? Men don't tell men anything. So it's like you have someone to process things with and share things with. Probably have a few people, right? But like a man, when he wants to tell something to his wife, that it's very common, but that could be like the only real place he has to share anything that's of great personal significance to him. Like the only place he has to really share and process is in his relationship with his wife. No pressure. So you understand like what a massive role that is?
I'm hearing it. Wow, and I never would have thought of that, like that men desire that.
Yeah.
I thought of that more as a feminine thing, like wanting that, like that women want someone to be with them in that's how female relationships often are. Like, always the complaint against men is that they're trying to solve the problem, and a woman just wants someone to be with them in the problem,
right.
and then they're happy to solve themselves.
Yeah. Well,
But essentially,
men want it in a little bit different way than women do. And of course, again, I'm speaking in generalizations, but yeah, it's a great misunderstanding to think that, no, men don't really want to ever share anything with anyone. Of course they do. Of course they want to share it. And they want to share it with someone who they care about. And when a husband tells a wife about something that happened to him, he's telling her because he respects her. He values her opinion. And in fact, if you understand the giver-recipient paradigm properly, then this will make sense to you. He doesn't really fully know what he's experienced until he re-experiences his own experience through the eyes of his wife. So when he shares it with her and she's able to absorb it and give it back to him, that's when it really becomes real for him.
wow.
It's a tremendous power.
So until he gets married, he hasn't experienced any of his own experience.
To a certain extent, that's true. That's true.
Wow.
A single man on his own, there's a certain depth of life that is just unreachable. You understand? It's not just like, you get married and you'll have a wife and you can have new experiences. Like, what new experiences? You're going to go to Niagara Falls on your honeymoon? Like, that's not what it means. What it means is there's a depth and a richness to the experiences of life that you cannot access until you're able to share it with a wife.
Wow. Would you say the same for women? Because before you said women have friends to do that with.
For women, what they're getting out of it is a little bit different. It's different. what men are lacking until they get married is different than what women are lacking until they get married.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, another sexist comment, but a man who's single for too long, it takes a real toll, like emotionally. Women can do much better single for longer. They might be unhappy because they're frustrated that they want to get married and they haven't gotten married, but like it's much easier for a woman to have a normal, healthy, productive life when she's single than it is for a man. Not saying it can't be done, but it's much harder for a man than it is for a woman. So what a man ultimately receives by being a provider is way more than what he provides.
That really, that broke it down. Like, now I'm getting it.
And now you see how important your role is and how really you're the one who is going to determine everything. He may bring home the flour, and that will determine whether it's wheat flour or barley flour or spelt or oats or rye. But you're the one who decides whether it's going to be pancakes or bagels or blintzes.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for the silly metaphors, but I think you understand what we mean.
Thank you.
So this gives you a little bit of something to work with. You can start on your list.
Gives me a lot. Thank you very much.
Okay, now I have a request from you. Will you please send me an invitation?
I will. Okay.
B'shah tova, in the right time. Okay.
Amen. Thank you very much for your time, Rabbi.
Okay, my pleasure. Okay.
Hey, this is Shais Taub. You were just watching a clip from this class. If you want to get the full context, the full class that this clip that you just watched was from, you watch right here. Click right